This episode of Fast Forward STL is sponsored by Bank of Washington.
Hi, I'm Keith Alper, host of St. Louis Magazine's business podcast, Fast Forward STL. I'm the founder and CEO of the Nitrous Effect Companies and a cheerleader of innovation, entrepreneurship, and business growth. Today's guest is Ed Glotzbach, a respected business leader whose career spans to AT&T, Technology Partners, Information Services Group, and Spire Energy. This year, he is leading the charge as the tournament chairperson of the 2026 BMW Championship at Belle Reve Country Club. We have so much to talk about. Ed, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, Ed Glotzbach, I love meeting you because I've never met you. I don't know how we haven't run into each other.
I don't either.
You have an amazing career and now an amazing job of what you're doing. So what we like to do here on Fast Forward is just learn about people. Tell us a little bit about you and your career, and you're a stellar business guy. Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, thanks. I guess my career started really with Southwestern Bell, and then went through the various iterations up to SBC Corp and then AT&T. So I spent 33 years there.
Wow.
In everything from the finance side. I retired as the chief information officer there when we were trying to assemble all the merged companies together, which was a really interesting assignment. And then I had a good friend in Houston who was running an IT consulting company called TPI. And he needed help running that company, and he talked me into it. So I did that for 6 years, and then we took that company public. And after doing some M&A for them, I spent more time here in St. Louis and became a board member at Spire Energy, and then became chair of the board for several years. So.
Wow, an incredible career. Are you originally from St. Louis?
No, I'm originally from Topeka, Kansas.
Okay.
Yeah, but
so next door.
Next door.
Yeah. Yeah. So you grew up in Topeka, and what brought you here? Southwestern Bell?
Southwestern Bell, yeah. I started out in the Kansas City area, and then in those days, almost all of us in the leadership ranks at the AT&T companies moved around quite a bit, and so I ended up in St. Louis, and I liked it, and knew a lot of the people here. And when we had a chance to settle down, this is where we settled down.
Oh, cool. I like to hear that. We talked to a lot of executives that moved around or not from here, and they end up staying here. And that's one of our things about how do we promote St. Louis and the momentum of St. Louis. So let's go back a little bit in your career. You had this amazing career at what was Southwestern Bell and then AT&T. First of all, if I asked some of your former friends and executives about Ed, what was your vibe? What did they know about Ed? What was your brand there?
That's a hard question. What I always tried to do, I somehow always ended up most of the time with large groups or large organizations, and sometimes with things that weren't always functioning great. So I tried to develop a style of bringing leaders in and giving them the power to do what they needed to, and help them out when I needed to, and stay out of their way when I didn't. And I was fortunate. I had so many good folks working for me. So I tried to be mostly soft-spoken, I think.
Yeah.
So I wasn't one of the big high D managers as much as trying to build teams.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I still believe that's the way you build great things.
Yeah, nothing really changes, right?
Doesn't.
It's humans and treating people well, and all the data always shows if people leave companies, it's because they're bosses. Not usually because of the company, it's because they're bosses. So leadership is very, very important. So we were talking before we started recording about DSL and T1, and you've seen everything. When you were talking about your career, I remember I used to have to go into a Southwestern Bell shop to get my car phone installed, right? They'd drill it, you'd have a hand. There was nothing portable back then. And then I got a bag phone. So you've seen technology grow like crazy. And so you've seen it go from here to here to here. Just give me your thoughts as somebody who's been in the industry and now kind of a bystander watching. Like, what excites you these days?
I was fortunate for a few years to work at the Bell Laboratories. And when you work there, you realize there are some really smart people working on a lot of tough problems. And it was actually during that assignment, this is a bit of a side story, that when we built the first cellular type phone system. It was called honeycomb, actually, because the cells were arranged like honeycombs, which geometrically, that's how you did it. And so I had one of the first suitcase phones that I sat in the seat of my car, and I thought I was really cool.
Right.
We drove up and down I-95 in New Jersey and talking to each other. But it's a lot of those discoveries, that have enabled a lot of the things. So I think sometimes we underplay theoretical research. And one of the hardest jobs I had in the system was trying to sell applied research. People don't want to pay for it. It's a little nebulous.
Right.
But that's where the progress comes from, in my view.
Yeah. I mean, it is amazing. And you, from somebody who's sitting in your chair, of seeing the beginning of that, really, and now almost every citizen in the United States has a computer in their pocket.
Exactly.
They can do things, they can do anything in about a second. They can find anything in a second. But you had to start somewhere, and that's what we love about even the entrepreneurship in St. Louis, of all the businesses that have been found here and how important entrepreneurship in tech is. So it's interesting. So then so you worked for a public company, by the way. And so I like to ask people that have been involved in public companies, a lot of public companies now more than ever have to manage to the quarter. And how was that? I know, we'll talk about Spire in a second, but how important was managing to the quarter at somebody like AT&T? And you guys were acquiring and changing. How does that change the dynamic of executive leadership?
Well, it was always important to manage the quarter. I wish I could say, no, we had the long range look and it was just a year, but no, it was the quarter. And when you're merging with companies, a lot of unpredictable financials come along with it. So it was a tough task to even estimate what you were going to be for the quarter.
Yeah.
But the quarter was important.
Yeah.
And the analysts, and they look at that and try to figure out whether your stock's a buy or not.
Yeah.
No escaping that.
Yeah. We'll be right back with more from Ed Glotzbach in just a moment. But first, a word from our sponsor.
This episode of Fast Forward STL is sponsored by Bank of Washington. Some banking questions can wait until tomorrow. Others can't. When an important transfer, payroll file, or account issue needs attention today, Bank of Washington is there with local bankers who know your business and are ready to help. When you call, a real person answers. No phone tree, no pressing one, no explaining your situation over and over again. Just local service, personal support, and responsive bankers who are ready when you need them most. Bank of Washington. Local bankers, real relationships. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
You were on the board and then chairman of the board of Spire, which is our gas company in St. Louis. And tell me about that, because, it's always interesting because nobody cares about utilities until you really need them, right? You always assume everything's working great, right? But Spire's turned out to be a great company and doing great things. Tell us a little bit about what you did at Spire and a little bit about that company.
Well, it is a utility company, of course, but it's another one that's been based in St. Louis for a long time. And the employee base there is very loyal, very innovative, which you say, well, innovation doesn't go along with the utility. Well, yeah, it really does if you're going to stay on top of it. One of the big problems, of course, that most people would never think about is how do you get the gas to St. Louis? Where's it come from? And when it gets really cold, how do you assure yourself of a supply? So we invested a lot of capital in making sure there was always gas available for St. Louis. It's not one of the glitzy things about the business, but really critical.
So answer the question, where do we get our gas from? I have no idea.
Well, some of it comes on a gas line called the Rocky Mountain Express, called REX, you might hear it referred to. And so it comes more out of the west part of the country. And there are a lot of terminal points down south around Louisiana, Baton Rouge, that place, because a lot of the gas centers there, which is where the liquid natural gas business has really originated too. So you kind of buy and sell based on future markets. And it's a real art form. I always tried to understand it, being mathematical kind of guy, but it is a really complicated thing to make sure you get good, inexpensive gas and dependable. So it comes from a lot of sources, but you got to have the right pipelines.
Yeah. And do we have several pipelines?
We do.
Yeah.
We have several backups. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there any gas located in the region? Like I don't, I know LNG is a big export in the United States. I guess we're one of the biggest producers of LNG.
Right.
But is there anything exploration around Missouri or anywhere? Or is it all coming from the south?
No, not really. There's an exploration field called the Marcellus, which is in Ohio. That's where a lot of it is.
Okay.
But not any around here, no.
Yeah. Interesting. We were talking earlier about, how to run a public utility, because every investor wants some utilities, right? It's always a safe bet. And,
Right.
How hard is it to run, like between running an AT&T and a utility, just what different management styles did you need there?
That's a great question. I think the management styles, using on the board, of course, you're a oversight, not so much a manager.
Right.
So you got to keep that line clear. Yep. And but there, the style was more of inquiry. Help me understand this. Help me understand that. Why do you think that's the right place to spend capital? When you're running more of an organization in a public business, it's more, okay, team, what do we do? Here's what we got to do. We got to have that by Monday. And
right.
So it's a little bit more of a back off oversight role in Spire. But when you got great managers that really understand the business, then, you realize that your value to them is really asking questions, seeing if you can come up with a good question.
Right.
That they maybe hadn't thought of.
Right.
And then too, the development of leadership in succession, which everybody talks about, but it's a tough thing.
More people don't do it than do it.
That's exactly right.
You know what I mean? Like, this will air later than when we're talking, but like the world kind of shattered because Jamie Dimon just announced two other people and it wasn't even the two people that people thought. And it was just like how that goes to markets and how succession in the board thinks succession is and stuff like that. So before we move on to the BMW Championship, and we're excited to talk about that, you did a lot of acquisitions in your career. And you took over an acquisition, you ran these things, and we've got entrepreneurs, so somebody might want to acquire a small business, or there might be somebody that's running a company. Like, what's the 2 or 3 top learnings overall your year about an acquisition? I have my thoughts, but I want to hear your thoughts.
Well, I would say the number one thing that I always thought about was trying to learn about the person or persons that we were going to acquire from, because you're going to have to ask a lot of questions. You got to really establish trust that, even in a disclosure situation, you're getting all the right things. So if you're dealing with somebody who's trustworthy and gives you straight shot answers, then that's kind of number one. Conversely, if you get an intuitive sense that, I'm not getting all the full story here, then, almost always just back away from it. Not worth it. You're going to not know some things you should know.
Yeah.
So that was number one. Number two was paying attention to the details of the numbers. I think what's happened too much, and I've always talked about this with the folks that I've been privileged to lead, is the Excel spreadsheet can be wrong. That's just a number. So how'd you derive it? How do you know it's right? You have anybody to check it for you? Because you can make a mistake or two in an acquisition and the whole situation changes. Then I would say the third thing, which is the most boring thing, is going through the terms of the M&A and the disclosure documents and the bid sheets and trying to really understand to make sure you didn't oversee something, didn't provide an oversight on something. But I think the most important was always who you're dealing with.
Yeah. But it's interesting because I read some stat once that 50% of acquisitions don't work out in some way. People miss things or the market's changed or whatever. You and I were talking before that executive leadership decided to buy, Time Warner, which seemed like you have the pipes, you got the content, seems like a brilliant idea at the time. But nobody's made money with Time Warner, and especially with the people that just bought it. There's no way they're going to make money with Time Warner. But how does it? I've had to do this in my business. Sometimes you got to make a decision. You thought this was the right decision. Now you got to clean it up. How hard is that because you have different people listening, and you might be a VP of something, you might be an entrepreneur. Sometimes you don't want to die with your idea. You need to say, okay, here's what's changed. We need to fix it. And AT&T did a good job of getting out of that business.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I've always believed when you're, particularly when you're going through an acquisition, is you don't do anything by yourself. So how good's the team that's with you? Do you have the right kind of skills on it? And then I think if you gather those folks together on a regular basis, say, we doing okay? Anybody uncomfortable? And then when the numbers start going south, which they do on some of them, then you got to sit down and say, okay, what are our options? But it never works not to face that.
Yeah.
It isn't going to get better. So
yeah.
Seemed like a good decision. Didn't turn out to be.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and from your varied background. I really appreciate it. It's great getting to know you. Let's talk about the exciting stuff. The BMW Championship at Belle Reve Country Club this August, and this will air before that. But as I told you, I'm fortunate to belong to a great country club, but I don't play golf. My ADD does not let me play golf. So the golfers love that at Westwood. They love the players that don't play, right?
Absolutely.
But so I'm asking a lot of questions, but I think like a third are golfers listen, a third want to be golfers, and a third are like me and don't play golf. But let's first talk about this championship, and also Belle Reve has hosted so many great championships. Talk a little bit. You're the chairman of it. Talk a little bit about what that means. You've told me you've been working on this for 4 years. Explain a little bit.
Yeah, we made the decision with Western Golf and the PGA Tour 4 years ago that we'd bring that to St. Louis. It's always been a primary motivator of our team at Belle Reve to bring big events to St. Louis because it matters, and St. Louis needs a lot more positive attention than it gets sometimes. So we think golf championships are one way to do that. So everybody remembers 2018 and all the things that happened there. And I think there's a lot of people around the world that didn't know about St. Louis maybe until then. So we said, yeah, we would do the BMW Championship. And then we have great partners there. We have Western Golf, we have BMW, and I talked a little bit about BMW and the PGA Tour, and some of my job is just kind of making sure everybody's singing out the same hymnal all the time, which isn't always the case. But the reason Belle Reve does these championships is how to enhance the reputation of the club, but that's secondary to bringing these events to St. Louis, and that's what really motivates us. When we had the 2018 championship here, we actually helped the PGA of America start a charity, now called PGA Reach,
right,
which was kind of birthed in an office out of Belle Reve. And
oh, cool.
And I remember when we talked to the PGA of America president, he said, "You think you could help us with this?" And we said, "Yeah, we could probably help you with that." And then when he left, we looked at each other and said, "How are we going to do that?" But it's turned out to be a national charity. It's called PGA Reach, PGA Hope. So Belle Reve's proud of what it gives back, and the championship this year, the sole beneficiary, the Evans Scholars Foundation, which sends a lot of deserving young caddies to college that don't have the means to do that themselves. So it's fun to raise money for good things like that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of details with putting on a big championship, and as has always been the case, I know I've been lucky in my business life to have great teams, and I've got a great team. We were able to split up operations and sales and make sure that the details get handled right, because again, it's just like an M&A thing in a little bit. You got to make sure the details are right.
Yeah, and then it comes down, as an events guy, it comes down to the little details but they're not little, from parking to bathrooms to drinks and keeping people cool if it's hot out, and
yes.
you gotta look at the whole thing. And where's it going to air? What network is it on?
It's CBS this year.
Oh, it's on CBS.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, CBS, our friends at Kirk of the Hills Church out there are constructing an area behind their church to expand their church. And just so happened the timing was such, we're able to put the whole CBS complex there.
Oh, that's incredible.
And so that CBS is real happy because they're really close to the course. And
Yeah.
they bring all kinds of trucks and carts.
All that stuff, exactly.
This episode of Fast Forward STL is supported by SSM Health Cardinal Glennon Children's Hospital. The Glennon Gallop returns Saturday, September 12th, presented by T. Donnie Charitable Trust. From an elegant VIP experience with fine dining, wine, and shopping to fieldside festivities, tailgates, and gathering with friends, there's something for everyone. Cheer on an exciting polo match and take part in the iconic Champagne Divot Stomp, all while supporting a great cause. Best of all, your attendance benefits the Donnie Pediatric Center at SSM Health Cardinal Glennon Children's Hospital. Learn more and reserve your spot today at glennon.org/gallop.
You know, it sounds a little bit, I don't want to call it a three-headed monster, because it's not, but everybody's got to work well together, and you're providing the facilities and the grounds. So just as an event geek here, like when do you have to shut down? How are members affected? You know, those type of things.
So we're fortunate that our course and our greens are in great shape right now. And prior to 2018, everybody knows that wasn't the case. We had some trouble, but we don't have that trouble now. So there are a couple of things that really matter to keeping a championship course ready for a big championship. One of them is keeping carts off the course. And so starting July the 6th, all our members will either walk or keep carts on the path or have push carts or something like that. That's the fastest way to make a course look real prime ready. So,
Yeah.
And then, as you might guess, we have a lot of guest play at Belle Reve, which we love and which they love being there. We had media day yesterday, and
wow.
all those media folks just loved playing the course. My advice to them was stay out of the rough, but I don't think they listened to me. But we've got, so guest play will probably stop in about 3 weeks.
Okay.
And then I'll just be members until August the 7th, and then for 10 days, they'll stay off the course and showtime.
Showtime, that's great. So let's talk about economic impact. I don't know if you have some of those numbers, but, you know, there's economic impact of people watching nationally and from around the world. There's an economic impact from hotels and airfare and restaurants. So this is a national event coming to St. Louis. And we just had, you know, the championship skating right before they went to the Olympics, and that was a huge, big win for St. Louis and in the region. So what kind of impact do you guys bring to St. Louis?
Well, we've had some economists, you know, like at WashU help us with some of that, and we know it's at least going to be 50 million. I think that's conservative.
Yeah, I think it's conservative.
And I know that in 18 we were probably closer to 80, 85.
Wow.
But as you know, it's kind of hard to get an exact number, but it has a big economic impact
Yeah.
on, you know, lodging, transportation, restaurants, guests coming to town.
Landscapers, electricians, all those people have to set these things up, right?
So it has a big economic, and it's broadcast to 200 countries. So you know that, you know, there's somehow people come to town. You know, the state of Missouri is helping us a little bit with this one, and they're really interested in the tourism of people outside the state of Missouri who don't necessarily know about what a great place it is.
Yeah.
So we know we conservatively say 50 million because we don't want to overpromise, but it's got quite an impact.
Yeah. So earlier you talked about youth and the nonprofit you guys helped start and the scholarships for caddies. How do young people get involved? I know you guys have volunteers. Is there anything for young people involved besides buying a ticket?
Sure. So a lot of young people get involved first by caddying. So we've got a big caddy program, and we've got a very purposeful caddy training program that gets young folks, you know, men and women involved in golf. The outreach part of a lot of these charities, we're fortunate to have the constant presence of Ozzie Smith with us because he really cares about this stuff. Yeah. And so down off of Grand, there are, whether it's the boys clubs and girls clubs, or there's some recreation fields where you can hit a golf ball. Yeah. And Ozzie goes down there and gives, tutorials once in a while. Yeah. He's a good golfer.
Yeah, Ozzie's a dear friend, and I know he's very passionate about this program.
He is, yeah. So that, we try to both get them involved in the golf side, but probably more than that is the money that we can generate to, and there's some education programs down here for kids that need tutoring.
Yeah.
So, we're very proud of all of those because they last and they're ongoing.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the great fabric of these things is it's multidimensional versus we're just going to have a golf tournament, right? And does those things. So I'm assuming this takes a lot of time, right? Maybe not as much 4 years ago as, your phone's probably ringing off the hook and all this stuff. And so is your role as it gets closer also as an ambassador? You got a lot of VIPs coming and political people and leaders and stuff like that. What's your role in all that?
It is. It's I have kind of a dual role now, I think. Part of it is being ambassador, and we have a lot of people from the PGA Tour that want to come here and look at how we're doing things so they can take some of that, to their next place. We have other clubs that want to come here. We have political figures that kind of want to see, how we got to this point. Yeah. So some of that, but probably the preponderance of time is just on, regular meetings with my team and making sure that we have that covered. And every day there's 5 new surprises that you just didn't think about, and so how are we going to cover that? Right. We got to worry a lot about security. And so we work closely with the law enforcement agencies on, here's a traffic plan. If there's a thunderstorm, here's an exit plan. And a lot of those things are details you hope you don't have to use. Yeah. But you need them if
you have to have them, right? You have to have them. There's a business part of this also, right? You have sponsorships, you have VIP hospitality. Tell me a little bit about this because it's expensive to put one of these on. How what do you guys have to do? What do we have to do in the region to make sure you're funded, and can people still buy tickets and hospitality packages and stuff like that for those listening? Because guess what? August isn't too far from now, right?
No, it isn't.
Yeah. I heard you had black hair last week and now you got gray hair, right?
Well, close. So I'm really, it's interesting to talk about hospitality sales here in St. Louis, which are probably the majority of the revenues that come to the championship. And 4 years ago when I sat down and said, okay, I'm happy to lead this with help, my biggest worry was so many corporations have left St. Louis. You and I were talking about that earlier. And I thought, boy, I'm not sure we're going to be able to sell as much as we really want to with hospitality. I was dead wrong. We're sold out right now.
Congratulations.
We sold over objective, and it's mostly because of something that I know you'd be proud of, and that is it's a lot of small businesses now and a lot of new businesses. And, they don't buy the big mega booths and all that, but they want a presence. They want to be part of the championship. And the list of businesses in St. Louis that are helping us out with hospitality is pretty gratifying. Yeah. So I'm glad I was wrong. We're in good shape. That's where a lot of it comes from. But then we have, grounds tickets, and you've got some other premium events, and a lot of businesses will buy packages at 10, 20, 50 tickets for a lot of their customers so they can come out. A lot of them come from outside, the region, which is another really good thing, for St. Louis. So we're in good shape in terms of that because the business community has really stepped up and helped us out. We would not be so happy if, that hadn't been the case.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned that, and a lot of this is about moving St. Louis forward and the momentum. And a lot of these mid-sized and smaller businesses have always been here. There's kind of famous family businesses here and all different kind of businesses and companies you don't know are doing $1 billion or $2 billion or $3 billion that nobody really knows there's a lot of quiet companies here, and we still have a fair share of corporate headquarters. But I think, a long time ago, there were the McDonald family that started McDonnell Douglas, and you have a lot of these families that started in entrepreneurship from the Jack Taylor family on. And I think what I've noticed a lot about a lot of entrepreneurs and leaders is everybody keeps reinvesting in St. Louis. We have some blemishes like every other major city, but to hear people talk about anything from the BMW championship to the zoo to what a lot of momentum that we've got going on, that's also part of this, right? Because those people participated and they want to invite their customers or do that. So, well, first of all, this has been an incredible conversation because I got to learn a little bit about Ed. And I'll send you my gas bill. That was a joke.
That's good.
And really excited about the BMW championship. And before we close, how often, you might not know this, but how often, because it seems like Bellerive has hosted a lot of these big events. How many have they done?
Well, let's see. This will be a test. We did the 1962 U.S. Open. We had the abbreviated World Golf Championships on 9/11, which everybody remembers.
Yeah.
We had a 2013 Senior PGA, 2018 PGA. This BMW Championship in 26, we had the BMW Championship in 2008.
Wow. So that's an incredible run.
We've had it. And one of the things I get asked quite a bit, that I'd want to share this with you, is people say, well, why do you think, the championships and tour keeps coming to St. Louis? And I always kind of wondered it myself, but I had a chance over the past couple of years to be at some interesting meetings. And what I have learned is one of the reasons they like coming to St. Louis is because St. Louis not only has great fans, but they're supportive fans, and they really support the players. And the players tell us that. So another thing about St. Louis, maybe hidden in the weeds, it's a real asset.
Yeah, I'm happy you brought that up. We had the figure skating championships here right before the Olympics, and the head of the whole global, championship said to St. Louis, this might be our best city we've ever been to, because we rolled out the red carpet. It was a big deal, the way we treated the athletes. Yep. And it was everybody pulling together, from the sports commission to the convention commission to the people that ran the facility. And I think those that live here, it takes all of us, right? It takes a welcome at the airport. It takes a thank you at the hotel. And I'm happy you mentioned that, because St. Louis has incredible citizens and incredible fans. Well, Ed, thank you. I hope to see you out there. And thank you for what you do.
Thank you. Thanks for having me and letting me talk about it. And I enjoyed the conversation.
Great.
A great deal. Thank you.
Well, that's our show. Ed, thanks so much for joining us today. I'm looking forward to a successful BMW championship at Bellerive Country Club. Best of luck, and thanks again for joining us.
For guest details, related stories, and more conversations shaping the future of St. Louis business, check out our show notes or visit stlmag.com. Stay connected through St. Louis Magazine's free newsletter with smart and local insights. Subscribe and get the best of St. Louis in your inbox. Fast Forward STL is a St. Louis Magazine production. Video and audio production provided by Steve Brand and The Nitrous Effect. Thank you for joining us, and until next time, let's keep moving St. Louis forward.